Welcome back to Talk Wordy, my hub for all of the words that I read, write, or otherwise want to yap about. Today, I want to talk about a little belated because I know you're probably seeing this in February by the time it releases, but I want to talk about the books that are high up on my 2026 TBR. I want to talk about the things that I'm most excited to read this year, specifically that are coming out this year. So I'm not talking about things that I thought I was going to read in 2025 and now I'm coming back around to it. No, I'm talking about things that are going to debut this year, and I want to be among the first to read and consume said literature. So let's get into it. I have a medium/medium long list ahead of me, so I'm going to try not to blab about each book for a long time. I want to keep it short. I want to kind of intrigue you and let you do some research on your own time. So the first one I want to start off with is the only book on this list that I'm worried is going to get pushed to 2027, and that is See You at Twilight by Christine Riccio. I have probably talked several times on this podcast about this woman, but I love her. She raised me. Her content is everything. I love her books. I'm in the middle of her fourth book right now, 30, Flirty, and Forever Alone. And originally, because I am a publisher's marketplace fiend, I saw that she was expected to release See You at Twilight at the end of this year, like sometime in the fall. But when I met her in January, I fear that her editor is pushing it to early 2027. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, but one thing about Christine that really lends itself to being the right person to write that book is Homegirl is a big twihard. Like Twilight is her thing. And she essentially wrote a book about two characters that go to Forks. And there's not a lot of detail that she has spoken about regarding that book, so I'm just going to leave it there. There is kind of this one sentence pitch line from Publishers Marketplace, but this isn't my story to tell. She hasn't fully released it to the public yet, so I'm just going to keep that to myself. But promise me, you're going to want to read this book. It looks super adorable. Okay. I have my notes out so that I can make sure that I talk about every book that I want to address. But I do want to say that there is no order. Every order that I talk about the different books that I want to read that are coming out this year, they are not in a specific order of this is my number one read, this is my number two, so forth, so on. This is just how I jogged my memory about which ones I've put on my want to read list on my Goodreads. So, okay, next up. Let's talk about Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It. Okay, Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It I know I just said that we're not going in numerical order of what my favorite is, but I think I've wanted this book for the longest out of everything else on this list, whether it's because I knew about this book earlier on. If you don't know Brooke Averick, who is writing the book, she is a very big podcaster and she's freaking hilarious. So I've been kind of watching her talk about this book that she wanted to write, and she was like, this is the year that I'm going to try and get the book deal. And then she got it. And then I saw the pitch line for it and I was like, I have to have this book in my hands immediately. It is so funny. And I haven't gotten to crack open a single page of the book. So what the book is about, it is about this girl who has the biggest ick with intimacy, but she is set to turn 30 and she is still a virgin, okay? She basically makes a promise to herself. She's like, I'm going to lose my virginity by the time that I'm 30 years old, so I'm not a 30-year-old virgin. And she has to figure out essentially how to get over the hump of being grossed out by intimacy, but also by dating. She does not like dating. It makes her very uncomfortable, and it's she doesn't like being in her body and experiencing dating. It's just icky to her. And honestly, in modern day dating, I am not in the dating scene, but I too would think it's disgusting. So right on for her. But I think there's going to be some really funny hijinks with it, considering she's in the presence or in the proximity of three men that are at her disposal for whatever reasons. It's giving Mamma Mia, but without the baby. And I'm here for it. I think it's going to be laugh out loud. I think from how I'm reading the blurb, it also feels very like feminine positive, very, I don't want to say critiquey because that's not the right word, but I think it'll be super niche and super spot on with like how our society operates currently in the dating world of 2026. You know, again, nasty. I don't wish it upon anybody, but I'm looking forward to reading this one. It's her debut novel, and I think it's going to be wonderful. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, the book has already released, but I haven't read it yet, but it's high up on my TBR, and it is The Lust Crusade by Jo Segura. If that name is vaguely familiar to you, that is because I have raved about her first book, Raiders of the Lost Heart. She is an adventure rom-com author that essentially has written the cutest female archaeology, like Indiana Jones spin, on those original stories. And Raiders of the Lost Heart was her first one. I absolutely gobbled it up. I think about it weekly. I still need to read Temple of Swoon. Do you see the puns? Do you see where I'm going with this? I still need to read Temple of Swoon. And then after that, this is the last one in the trilogy, and it is The Lust Crusade. But specifically, the blurb about this one, I remember when I met her on her tour stop for Temple of Swoon last year. And it is about a plucky librarian and an archaeologist on the run. And they have to fake an engagement to save their lives. But doing so leads them to fall into a pit of like their own desires and their history together. And I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to eat it up because I remember reading the blurb for Raiders of the Lost Heart. And I was like, I don't know if this is really going to be for me, but I'm going to try it because I'm meeting her. Was obsessed with it. And so I can't even imagine the actual effect that this book that is everything to me just from the blurb, I can't even imagine what that's going to do to my psyche. So I'm absolutely elated. I need to read Temple of Swoon. I will not stray from the proper order, but I'm going to read it. It's going to happen. Okay. Also, I want to say that none of these books that I'm talking about, I don't think any of them are in the right publishing order because they just aren't. So I'm going like ping-ponging across my list and across the year release date-wise. So please bear with me. Next up on my list, I have The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillig. If you have not read The Night and the Moth, what are you doing? I need you to go pick it up. I need you to go read it. I have not read, for, context, I have not read One Dark Window, One Dark Window and or Two Twisted Crowns. The alliterations of that title, for some reason, it throws me off every time I try to say it. But I have not read those two books. I want to, but for some reason, they just weren't like grabbing me. And then she went on tour for The Night and the Moth. And I had friends go to her Austin stop and they had a blast. And I still didn't get the hype of the book. I wasn't really in a fantasy mood at the time that the book came out. I think it came out in like July. In July, summer months just don't give fantasy to me. They give contemporary rom-com. So it just wasn't hitting for me. And so finally, my book club was like, hey, we're going to read The Night and the Moth. And I was like, well, I'll be damned if I don't read the book club pick this month. And I audiobooked it. And oh my goodness, you guys, it was fan-freaking-tastic. I can't say a lot about The Knave and the Moon because it is a direct sequel following the events of The Night and the Moth, and a lot of stuff goes down, and I need you to trust me, and I need you to go read it. It was so lush, and I think the characters were so like perfectly fleshed out and relatable. I loved it. That's all I really got to say. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the second book. It was also The Night and the Moth. It was my number 2 read of the year. Now, what was my number 1 read of the year, you may ask? Well, first of all, I have a whole video on it, a whole podcast episode on it. You can go stream it. You could go watch it. But I'm going to spoil because my first favorite read from this past year was Nightshade by Autumn Woods. And her sequel, Daybreak, comes out, I think, like the day after my birthday this year. It's like she's gifting it to me. Again, sort of like The Night and the Moth and The Knave and the Moon. I can't say a lot about this book because it is a direct follow-up from the events of Nightshade, But all I've got to tell you about this book is the vibes are immaculate. I'm talking like foggy Scottish Highlands, creepy castle, mystery, crossword puzzles. It is everything to me. I read Nightshade in late October, and the experience was unreal. I also read it in paper. I can't even imagine how good this would be in an audiobook. I don't know if it's in an audiobook, but it should be. I cannot wait to read this. Also, Autumn Woods, the author, she is an indie turned trad. So also like live my dream, girl. I love following authors that started indie and then went trad because they were so successful as indies. I just think it's so freaking cool. Okay, next up, I briefly want to touch on the Jax and Evangeline novella because in this house we stand Once Upon a Broken Heart. I love Stephanie Garber's writing, although I have not yet read Alchemy of Secrets, I think is what it's called. But I loved Caraval. I loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. And I cannot wait to have Jax and Evangeline back in my life in some capacity. Yeah, I don't really know anything else about the novella. I really hope that I'm right in the fact that it comes out this year. But I need it. I need it medically, injected into my veins. Okay, speaking of injected into my veins, in the last few years, I have come across this author, and everything they write, she knocks it out of the park, and I love it. It's always a great time to be had, and I actually am going to see her in person again in less than a month at Love LitCon, and that is Catherine Center. Catherine Center, she is releasing a new book called The Shippers, and it's basically about while on a cruise for her sister's destination wedding, a girl named JoJo enlists the help of her childhood best friend Cooper to make her lifelong crush interested in her, but developing feelings for him was never part of the equation. And let me tell you, for reasons I can't disclose just yet in detail, I need you to understand that there are very specific stories that I like story elements or settings. A cruise ship is one of them. I need more cruise ship books in my life. Going on a cruise, it feels like somebody bottled up Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield and just like released it into a contained environment. That's what it feels like to go on a cruise. And so I feel like that's how it's going to feel when I read this book. Her recent titles are The Love Haters, The Bodyguard. The Bodyguard is getting turned into a Netflix movie with Jared Padalecki and Leighton Meester. They renamed it, and the movie's called Guarding Stars. But still my favorite from her is The Rom-Commers. But also she's just a lovely human being and a Texan. Yay! So I'm thrilled. The book comes out on May 19th, and I know that because May 19th is my dating anniversary with my husband, and I just think it's this perfect storm of coincidence, and I love it. It's like she did that just for me. Okay, next up, we've got Toe to Toe by Fallon Ballard. So I recently acquired a book of hers called Something Wicked. I have not read it, but the vibes look right up my alley. So I need to read it, but in the midst of her Something Wicked tour and the promo, she dropped news that she was releasing a book called Toe to Toe, and it was described as like Dirty Dancing meets Magic Mike. And so it's a prima ballerina who's auditioning for this like coveted role, and she thinks it's her time to shine and she's going to get the role, but somebody in the production and like the casting, I guess, is like, hey, like you don't have enough like edge. You know what I mean? No edge there. And we need to spice up your appeal that way for us to really consider giving you the role. And so she enlists the help of a male dancer. That kind of dancer, you know what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my generation's Dirty Dancing, even though I'm obsessed with Dirty Dancing, like the actual movie with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, one of my favorite movies of all time. I need this book again, medically. I need it in my life and in my hands immediately. So, toe to toe. I do need to read Something Wicked, though. She's also going to be at Love Lit Con, so hopefully I will remember to bring her my book and get it signed. Okay, next up, if you don't know who this is, you eventually will. Her name is Taylor Epperson, and she is going to be a debut author. I think her book releases in April, if I'm not mistaken. She is releasing a book called Second Time's a Charm, and it is about a disgraced witch who returns home to take up her father's sanctuary for magical creatures. But returning home also means putting herself in the path of her old flame turned assassin, but she needs his help to save the sanctuary. She calls it rom-com fantasy or fantasy rom-com, and I think that is such a fun genre blend. I think this book is going to do so well. The way she's like branding it is like super like pink and soft and lovely. Also, she's just a really great person. I've been following her online for at least a year or so now. She's just a delight, and she deserves more attention on her projects. So I'm super thrilled to read that. You should go check her out. Next up, I have Love Song by Elle Kennedy. I will say I took a break from Elle Kennedy after The Graham Effect. Genuinely because The Graham Effect was like a Roman Empire book for me, and like nothing could hold a candle to it for a long time. But in addition to like books about like going on a cruise or dancing books are for me too. Obviously I'm writing a Dancing with the Stars rom-com, but music books are like my heart and soul. And so when I found out this book was titled Love Song, I was like, color me intrigued. So it's a second chance romance with two characters from the next gen of the Briar University universe. Because what do you mean it's John Logan and Garrett Graham's kids in like a summer lake house trying to reignite musical inspiration? I need it. Elle, you know what to do. I don't care. Send it to me in an email. Send it to me physically. Put it on audio, but I don't care. I need this book bad. Yeah. If you don't know who Elle Kennedy is, I think you've been living under a rock. She's the author of The Deal, The Mistake, The Score, The Goal, The Risk, The Dare, all these. I don't want to say quintessential because they are definitely new adult and they are like not innocent, but they're just so good. I love those books so dearly. And I'm really, really excited for this next one. So if you haven't read her books, start with The Deal and then go onward. And if you say that you don't like it, just don't tell me about it. Don't let me know because I love them. Next up, I have Fever Dream. Fever Dream by Elsie Silver. So Elsie Silver, also, again, if you don't know who that is, I feel like Elsie Silver and Elle Kennedy are always talked about kind of in the same rooms. Even though they don't write the same subgenre. Elle Kennedy is basically a hockey romance goddess. And then Elsie Silver is like the pinnacle for cowboy Western romance. And so for this next book, it is a reality TV / Western cowboy romance. And also something to note about Elsie Silver is that she has never had a bad audiobook ever. The audiobook production that goes into her books is absolutely unmatched. Do I have all of her books in a physical format? Yes. Have I ever read one of them in paperback? No. No, and I won't. Also, this book features Julia Silva and Emmett. I'm blanking on his last name right now, but we met Emmett in Wild Card, her last book of the Rose Hill series. And then Julia Silva is the younger sister of Theo Silva, the fictional love of my life, Theo Silva. I have never been able to get Theo Silva out of my head when anybody mentions Elsie Silver. Like, that's the first thing I think of. I think of Theo Silva. Reckless, that it's by far her best book, but we now are about to get another Silva character. So who knows? This may knock it off the top. I would be shocked, but I mean, go for it. And finally, last but certainly not least, my last highly anticipated 2026 release is How to Find Love in the Cereal Aisle by Alyssa DeRogatis. So, fun little personal tidbit. She leads the writing group, the online writing group that I'm a part of. She is a spectacular person. So blunt, so funny. Also, if you are at all interested in reading essays on Substack, this girl makes content that I just have to like back away from the computer and collect myself for 10 minutes. That kind of content. She can write you to filth. But anyways, her second book is coming out. It's not a direct follow-up from her first book, which her first book is Call It What You Want. Now, if you don't recognize her name, you will definitely recognize that title. She indie published it and sold like 120,000 copies. Freaking insane. She wrote that book loosely based off of a situationship that she was in and how she processed it. But her second book, if you're wanting a more optimistic read, her second book is How to Find Love in the Cereal Aisle. And it is about a girl who, after orchestrating meet cute after meet cute with the help of her best friend Lucas, she starts to think that her perfect love story already has its male lead in him. So basically, from what I've gathered, she works, I think she's an author or she's in the publishing industry. She produces stories of some kind and she writes love stories, like whether it's a love column or essays or whatever, but it's all about romance and love and dating. And in real life, she just like her boyfriend just broke up with her and she's had no inspiration. Her story that she has to turn into her editor is on deadline and she hasn't finished it. And it's this whole deal. And so she tries to orchestrate like natural, authentic, in real life meet cutes. But as that happens with the help of her best friend, she starts to think, oh, well, what if I've already had my perfect meet cute and I'm just like not taking advantage of it, or like I'm not using it the way I should, like maybe I should be with him. Best friends, friends to lovers, second chance. I am sad. Okay, you guys, that is my full lineup as I've done my research and seen so far of my 2026 top anticipated reads. I am sure that as soon as I wrap up this recording, I'm going to find other books that are coming out this year that I need to read and put on my TBR immediately. But in the meantime, that's what I've got. If you have any recommendations for what I should keep my eye out for releasing this year, let me know in the comments. My DMs are always open, and I love a good book recommendation for somebody who knows my heart and who knows what I like. So if you think that I would like a book that's been on your radar, let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next one.